All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and today we have a really fun matchup to cover. Utah is heading into Morgantown to take on West Virginia. Should be a great matchup. West Virginia smelling blood in the water after Utah looked very beatable at home against a very talented Texas Tech team. I think the narrative around that's a little different than what actually happened. Utah had a close drag out fight with Texas Tech until the very middle of the fourth quarter, and then Texas Tech kind of pulled away. But up until then, it was an extremely competitive game. But then vice versa, you've got a West Virginia team that had a ugly loss against not they got beat up, but against Ohio, they had a loss, and that's not a loss you want on your record. And then they got pretty beat up 41-10 against Kansas. So West Virginia is going to be coming into this game looking to get some respect back on their name and get back into that conversation of solid Big 12 teams, where Utah is looking for a little bit something different. Utah is looking to come into West Virginia, obviously leave with a win, but ideally leave with a statement win, right? Show, hey, there is a lot of crap being talked about Utah right now, but we are one of the better teams in the Big 12. We want a big win here. So if you're a Utah fan, that's kind of what you're looking for, guys. This should be a fun matchup to break down. I'm excited to dive in. I'm excited to get into it. Before we do so, make sure you guys smash that like button. That's going to help get it out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below. What points do you agree with? What am I missing? I want to know your guys' thoughts. I'm excited to get into it. It should be a really fun breakdown here. I think West Virginia is a team that actually has some very strong parts of their game, but they also have some pretty major weaknesses that are hard for them to avoid, right? And so I'm excited to dive into it. And Utah's got a lot to prove after last week, right? There was a lot of potential flaws for Utah getting exposed as real flaws. So this should be a fun matchup, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in and go Utes. All right, guys, and we're gonna go ahead and get started by talking about Utah. So Utah, I think there's a lot we can talk about with Utah, and I think Utah fans rightfully have a lot of concerns after the offensive performance we saw last week. If you look at the raw defensive numbers, they're not great either. But don't forget that game was razor thin until the middle of the fourth quarter. So I'll touch on that, and I do think there are some people that need to be called out and some observations that need to be made. But I'm going to take a look at the offense, guys. So on the offense, when we're looking at the game against Texas Tech, and I'm going to be laser focused on that Texas Tech game because it is our only time that we have played a very high level opponent. Now, like I mentioned, I think Texas Tech could be a top five, top eight team. They were extremely impressive. But I also think there's rightful criticism of some of our guys. So I'm going to point something out here, guys. So we ran the ball 30 times in that game. So a rushing game of 30 attempts rushing the ball. And a staggering number here, guys. We only broke 4 tackles. So on 30 rushing attempts, we were able to break 4 tackles. And for our actual running backs, right, the guys that make their money running the ball, Wayshawn Parker had 6 carries, Nakari Rogers had 10 carries, and Nakari Rogers had 1 broken tackle, and Wayshawn Parker had 0. And again, 30 carries, only 4 broken tackles. This is a huge part of why we lost this game. Now, I want to do the inverse just to give you guys a reference point if you're not familiar with what a good broken tackle percentage is. For reference, Texas Tech ran the ball 36 times. In those 36 runs, Texas Tech's rushing game broke 15 tackles. So they only had 6 more carries than us, but they had 11 more broken tackles than us. So I do want to call that out because I haven't heard anyone really hammer home this observation. I think the running game dropped the ball quite a bit last week, and that's not really on the offensive line. Like when you're not breaking any tackles, and sure they broke a few, but it really like we're talking about almost one out of every 10 carries they had a broken tackle, where Texas Tech, on the inverse, had almost more than one out of three carries, almost one out of two carries. So if you guys look at that, it'll tell you quite a story here. And another number I want to point out for the rushing attack, because I think this was crazy. This is a crazy stat. So not only did we only break four tackles, we had zero rushing attack attempts of 10 plus yards. So none of our rushing attempts went for more than 10 yards. That is a crazy number. Again, just to flip it to Texas Tech and give you guys an idea, which don't forget, for the vast majority of the game, this offense was kind of locked down by our defense. They had 7 carries of over 10 yards. So the number one difference I see in these two teams, clearly they threw the ball better than us, but their running backs got out there, earned their paycheck, and made it happen. And on top of that, guys, our rushing game, we fumbled twice. One fumble from Wayshawn Parker and one fumble from Devin Dampier. So we had two fumbles and four missed tackles, which means we had half as many fumbles as we had missed tackles. That's just not going to win you games. Zero carries of 10 plus yards. Just a rough go there, guys. A really rough look from our game. Passing wise, Devin Dampier really struggled. Now, Devin Dampier went 25 for 38, 65.8% completion percentage, zero touchdowns, two picks. Big time throws, one turnover worthy plays, two. Average depth of target, 9.1 yards. A rough look, guys. A rough look here. He was pressured 10 times, one sack. So, rough look for Devin Dampier as well. And what's even more staggering is I can pull up some numbers here about where he was throwing the ball. And I think this is worth calling out. So, our passing game became extremely limited and could not do anything outside of what they were giving us. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you guys here. So we threw the ball um, behind the line of scrimmage. There's like screens and that sort of thing. 7 times we completed all 7 passes. We threw the ball short, which is between 0 and 9 yards, 17 times, completed 15 of those. And don't forget, Devin Dampier only completed 25 throws. So 15 completions short, 7 completions behind the line of scrimmage is 22 total completions. Medium, so 10 to 19 yards, we threw the ball 7 times, had 3 completions. Deep, we threw the ball 6 times and had 0 completions. And when we expand that, guys, to the entire season, we only have one pass of 20 or more yards, so a deep shot that we completed out of 14. So, one, the number of attempts are low, but two, the actual completion percentage is horrendous. I mean, 1 out of 14. So we see a revitalization of this passing game. And I'm also going to go ahead and call out the wide receivers because I think this is worth looking into as well, guys. So our wide receivers in this game, our leading wide receiver was Dallin Bentley, 6 catches for 75 yards. Ryan Davis right behind him with 10 catches for 69 yards. Um, but the thing I want to point out is, like we just talked about, guys, they caught a lot of short passes, right? A ton of short passes. And so, what was it? 15 short passes, 7 behind the line of scrimmage. So, I'm not going to leave these guys out of the broken tackle conversation. Like I talked about with the running backs, like this offense is going to be heavily favored on making sure we break tackles. The running backs weren't breaking tackles, and on 25 completions, our receiving game only broke 6 tackles and only got 6 first downs. So in total, our team broke 10 tackles on 25 completions and 30 carries. So 55 plays, we broke 10 tackles. So less than 1 out of 5 plays are we breaking a tackle on? Which, especially, guys, it's one thing if you're taking a lot of deep shots and it's an explosive downfield offense, jump balls, that sort of deal. This is an offense that dinked and dunked their way through everything. Like I said, 22 of those 25 completions were 9 yards or less. And then on the running game, none of those carries went for more than 10 yards. So we are talking about a team that just struggled to break any tackles and create any explosive plays. I just wanted to point that out, guys. That was a bit of a rant and probably sounded like I was complaining, but I did want to call that out. Um, with the defense, I'm gonna defend them a little here. I think I heard someone bring up the stat that the defense allowed um 23 missed tackles, which is pretty crazy. It's a very high number. But I also want to point out that their rushing attack for Texas Tech had 180 something yards. What was it? Yeah, 189 yards according to PFF, and 103 of those 189 yards were in the fourth quarter. Our defense had the game on their back the entire time. The entire game was on our defense's back. And then in the fourth quarter, I think the fatigue, they were worn down, and then they started missing a lot of tackles. I didn't count the missed tackles by quarter, but if 103 of the rushing yards were in the fourth quarter, I'm going to go ahead and say 50% or so of the missed tackles were also in the fourth quarter. So the defense did really get worn down. And I point that out for a couple of reasons. So one, the defensive performance, that missed tackle stat is not as bad as some other people have made it out to be. But I also want to point out that they a lot of their success rushing the ball um was at the very end of that game. Talking a little more about the defense, there is a group that I do want to call out a little bit here. Um, our DBs got cooked a little bit at the end of that game. Now I know that that quarterback was really cooking himself, right? But I've seen some. I think I'm going to have some controversial takes here. So first guy I am going to call out on the defense, and I again, all of this is meant to be that we get better as a team and we address our problems, and these are the problems I'm seeing. So Nate Ritchie, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on this guy from the last game. He had 19 opportunities to make a tackle. 19 opportunities. And just to give you guys an idea, the next highest number of opportunities was only 11. And after him, it was only 7. So Nate Ritchie at 19 opportunities, one thing that tells you he was flying around to the ball. But I think the other thing that it tells you, and I'm just going to be real about it, when I see a disparity like this, I think there might have been a game plan to where it was, hey, they're noticing this guy on tape. I think he might be a weak link of this defense, which many people have commented on my videos. Many people have called him out as a weak link on this defense before. And they noticed it on tape. And they say, if we're going to let a guy free and let our running backs try to go one on one and break and make a man miss, that's the guy you let free. I'm not saying for sure that happened, but this number is staggering. 19 tackle. And then I'm going to give you another number, guys. On those 19 tackle attempts, he made 13 tackles, clearly led the team in tackles, but he missed 6 tackles. That is a huge number. Now, on top of that, Nate Ritchie also had 6 stops, which are neutral or negative plays for the offense. So he had a real tale of two games where some of these stats are horrendous. 31.6% missed tackle percentage on nearly 20 tries. That's crazy. And then he also allowed he was targeted 6 times for 4 catches. He allowed 100 yards and had 1 pass breakup. I also think the entire DB room, Smith Snowden allowed 47 yards on 5 targets, 4 catches. Jackson Benny, 6 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards. I do think the entire DB room could have some rightful criticism from how that game went. Now, again, it was unfair how that game went, that we had to play a aggressive style, manning up with these guys, and our offense did them no favors. They were very fatigued, and I feel confident in saying that a lot of these plays were at the end of the game. But I do think it's worth looking at that. I thought there were some guys on defense that needed to be spotlighted there. On a positive note, I don't think there's too much positive on offense. I'm not going to give you guys any positive from the offense we saw last week. But a guy that really did show up on defense is Jonnu Hall. Jonathan Hall, number 7 for Utah, had 11 opportunities to make a tackle, and it showed on film. He looked damn good. He had 10 tackles and only missed one tackle, and then had 7 stops, so neutral or negative plays for the offense. So I'm excited to see if Jonathan Hall can follow up that awesome performance with another one. Uh, this week. So should be a lot of fun, guys. But that is kind of what we're looking at with Utah post Texas Tech game. Now, I called out a lot of things. Again, guys, I think we are really in for a good game. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted to point that out. I think we still have a really good team that can really go toe to toe with West Virginia. And I'm going to give you guys some numbers that where we are on the national rankings against FBS teams, even after a really tough performance. So let me throw some numbers at you guys here. So right out the gate, guys, um, Utah has still only allowed a 1.7% pressure rate. And again, that's including we just went up against some of the best edge rushers in all of college football in Texas Tech. I mean, they have two of their or two of their edge rushers are in the top three, top five of total edge rushers in the country for pressure rate. These guys are ridiculous. So that's a really good sign. And then on top of that, even with this rough game, guys, our running backs are still averaging 5.4 yards per carry. Our rush defense is 126 rushing yards per game allowed and only allowing 3.8 yards per carry. Um, we're 199 in passing yards per game, so still under 200, even though Texas Tech put up 300 on us. Um, and Oh, sorry, our offense gets 199 passing yards per game, so that's actually a pretty bad number. But our number is actually better than that. We only allow 185 passing yards per game when playing FBS opponents, and points per game, our offense is still averaging 28 points a game, and our defense is only allowing 16.7 points per game allowed. So we still have a really strong resume. Our turnover margin is still at 0, even after her horrendous look. So that's what happened last week. We still got a great crew, guys. I still believe in our ability to run the ball, and I think we'll see a bounce back throwing the ball. We also heard about the Dampier injury. So this is a great opportunity to bounce back. Should be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and dive in and check out the matchups for the West Virginia game now. All right, guys, and now we are going to look at the matchup between Utah and West Virginia. Really exciting matchup here. Um, let's go ahead and start breaking down the different position groups. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start with quarterback. I'm going to start with Utah's quarterback. Utah's quarterback is Devin Dampier. A rough week last week, but overall on the season, actually having a pretty good year. 89 completions on 126 attempts. Another small stat that I noticed as we go through the season here, his attempts to drop back percentage is almost identical, which is usually not the case. So he has 126 attempts on 138 dropbacks, which means he's getting the ball off almost every time he drops back, which is kind of like one of those little underlying stats that actually does make a difference. Um, Also, the reason I bring this up is he's only gotten sacked 3 times on 126 pass attempts. That is a really, really low percentage. Part of that is because his offensive line has done such a good job, but the other part of it is that he's able to scramble out of danger, make plays and keep himself safe. So I think that's a really good sign right there. Just something I wanted to point out for Devin Dampier. Um, looking pretty strong throwing the ball overall. He's thrown for 41 first downs. Um, Adjusted completion percentage to account for drops is 76.7%. I think the area he's currently not looking great in is big time throws. The turnover where he plays is 3 to 3. So 3 of each, which isn't where you'd want it to be, but that's also not terrible. It's right down the middle, but even is not great. He does have 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and those turnover worthy plays were basically all against that Texas Tech defense, which showed out. So again, I don't want to build a Goliath out of Texas Tech, but I really do. I had strong feelings before the game, and I had strong feelings after the game that Texas Tech was a really, really good team. I did feel like they were an even better team after the game, but even before the game, you guys can go back and watch the pregame breakdown. I felt strongly Texas Tech was really good. Now let's go ahead and move on to the quarterbacks for actually let's go ahead and talk about the receiving game for Utah. The receiving game for Utah, it's a decent crew. You got Ryan Davis at 240 yards on the year. And then outside of that, you got Dallin Bentley at 187. I think a fair critique of Utah is that they haven't done a great job getting the other guys in the mix. Hunter Andrews was having a pretty good year, and he was 10 targets, 10 receptions, and he is out for the season now. Other receivers that have been getting involved, Tobias Merriweather, JJ Buchanan. Um, Tobias Merriweather's reception percentage is concerning. I think some of this is chemistry with Devin Dampier, but also like it doesn't seem like Devin Dampier is having much chemistry issues with the other guys. Merriweather has been targeted 14 times and only caught 5 passes. Now he is getting downfield targets more than the other guys, but still, I mean, it is just odd how little they're hooking up. Like, for example, Tobias Merriweather has no contested catch opportunities, while Dallin Bentley, Ryan Davis, Hunter Andrews, and JJ Buchanan all have at least two. Ryan Davis and Dallin Bentley, which are more in the, they're Tobias Merrill was kind of in the middle of the group, but that to Ryan Davis and Dallin Bentley are 4 contested catch opportunities and 5 contested catch opportunities. So a little weird there. Also, Tobias Merriweather has 2 penalties. Little concerning there. I think on the bright side, guys, it sucks that Hunter Andrews is out because he was looking like a deadly weapon. But it does feel like Dallin Bentley has become a very good receiving tight end. Not to box him in and say he's only a receiving tight end, but as a receiver, he seems like he's developed quite well. Ryan Davis also seems to have developed into at the low end like a, you know, reliable receiver, right? Maybe he won't be a dynamic playmaker, but a reliable receiver that can get the job done. I think um, Ryan Davis is really starting to show some good signs. He's got the forced missed tackles. He does have the 1 fumble. I believe that was against Texas Tech. Um, I think what we're really looking for from him is continue to get that forced missed tackle number up, continue to make plays after you catch these short passes. It's okay to be a short yardage receiver, right? To be a guy that makes his plays behind the line of scrimmage and between, the 5 to 7 yards. But once you catch it, I want to see more, right? Yes, he has four force missed tackles, but that's on 29 catches, right? That's still barely above 10%. Let's get that number more in the 25 to 30% range where you're breaking tackles at a high pop. He has done a good job of getting first downs. He's got 13, so that's a little over 3 per game. But I do want to see him continue to improve. When I look at this receiver core, if I was West Virginia, I would feel like, okay, there's a clear 1 and 2 in Ryan Davis and Dallin Bentley. Outside of that, um, JJ Buchanan, 6 catches, 10 targets. His contested catch opportunities, he's had 3 contested catch opportunities. He's caught 2 of them, and he's broken 2 tackles. So JJ Buchanan's broken 2 tackles on 6 catches. That's a really nice number. I actually really like that. And he has 2 first downs on 6 catches, and I know he's got at least 1 touchdown. Yeah, 1 touchdown. So let's hope, as much as the Hunter Andrews injury sucks, let's hope this is a good opportunity to get JJ Buchanan a little more involved. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the let's go ahead and move to West Virginia's ability. Actually, before we move to West Virginia's, let's go to West Virginia's ability to cover the pass. So we're gonna check out their coverage grades. And I'm only gonna be looking at guys that have at least 20 coverage snaps. That's an average of 5 coverage snaps per game. I think that's a safe number to feel like those guys will have a decent shot at being out on the field and are worth considering. So let's take a look here. Big 12, West Virginia. Okay. Okay, so what do we have here? So this is kind of the thing that stood out to me about West Virginia. Before I go through these numbers, guys, I think this is a game where we have a really good bounce back opportunity in the passing game specifically, and let me tell you why. Um, so West Virginia's passing defense is allowing 232 passing yards per game, and they have played a reasonably less tough schedule than us. We're neck and neck. We're close, but still, they'll be allowing 232 passing yards per game is a quite a high number. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to get in there and take advantage of it. And you think about who their FBS games are against. It's Pitt, Ohio, and Kansas. Kansas is the only real good team in that group. Um, so I think this is a really good sign for us guys. And just right out the gate, you can take a look here and see that some of their guys are allowing quite a bit of yards. So this guy right here, two of their safeties. So Kakura Carnu and Darian Lewis. They've been targeted. Kakura is 18 targets, allowed 15 catches for 231 yards. He's got two penalties, and he has zero picks and he's allowed one touchdown. But that is a very 231 yards so far in the season. That's a lot. And then Darian Lewis, not too far behind. He's another one of their safeties, and both these guys have played well over 100 coverage snaps. Darian's been targeted 15 times and allowed 11 catches for 152 yards. He has zero pass breakups. He does have two interceptions, but not a great look there, guys. Those two seem to be two guys we should be able to take advantage of, whether they're covering our tight ends or our receivers. I think that'll be a good opportunity. This guy's a little better here. Jason Chambers, their cornerback. He's been targeted 11 times, allowed six catches for 95 yards, and he has 124 coverage snaps, so pretty good number there. Ben Cutter, linebacker, been targeted 12 times, allowed eight catches for 94 yards. So when you look at this, guys, let's take a look at total coverage snaps. Who's at the top here? So yeah, Jason Chambers looks pretty solid. He's their corner number 23. Kokora Tarnu and Darian Lewis, their two safeties, have allowed quite a bit of yards and on the and been targeted quite heavily with a high reception percentage. So they look like some opportunities for us to take advantage. Just kind of across the board here, looking at their safeties. They also have Fred Perry, number 5, who seems to get a little bit of play or a similar amount of action as well. He's only been targeted 9 times and allowed 6 catches, so he's not as easy. I'd say definitely something to keep an eye on is Kokora Tarnu and Darian Lewis, number 14 and 24, how our defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator Jason Beck is able to take advantage of the opportunities against those guys because their corners do look pretty damn good. You look the other two corners they have outside the Jason Chambers, number 23, they've got Michael Coates Jr. and Jordan Scruggs, number 3 and 6. And neither one of those guys has been targeted more than 7 times. And it's 7 targets for Scruggs, 3 receptions allowed, 50 yards. Ben Cutter, 12 targets for eight receptions, 94 yards. Actually, looking at Ben Cutter, I'm guessing he's their slot guy. Yeah, I'm gonna guess he's their slot guy. I don't want to dig too much into it, but he's number or actually, sorry, Jordan Scruggs. Oh, sorry, I messed up there. They both actually do look pretty good. Their linebacker Ben Cutter though plays a decent amount, 57 coverage snaps. 12 times he's been targeted. He's allowed 8 catches and 94 yards, and that's on 57 coverage snaps. So he's another opportunity. Their corners look pretty good coverage wise across the board, low targets, low receptions allowed, and that's but their linebacker and their safeties do seem to be pretty susceptible in the passing game. So that's a good opportunity for us there. Looking at these numbers, I think it plays off what we do well, right? We shine in getting our tight ends involved, especially Dallin Bentley has really looked good lately. And if the safeties are on him or that linebacker's on him, he should have a good opportunity to take advantage of it. I think the cornerbacks are going to test our receivers a bit, but I think we'll be able to get our running backs involved, get creative with that short pass game to take advantage of a underwhelming group that's allowing 232 passing yards per game. Okay, now we're going to flip things, guys, and we are going to look at the passing attack for West Virginia. So the cool thing is I was delayed on making this video, but some news did drop that West Virginia is going to have Jalen Henderson as their starting quarterback for the game. So it kind of worked out, huh? Jalen Henderson is a transfer coming in from Texas A&M. He is a dynamic player with his legs, a decent passer. But there are some things I do want to point out about this guy because there are some clear vulnerabilities. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Jalen Henderson. Okay, Jalen Henderson, West Virginia. Let's take a look at the kid here. So passing the ball, Jalen Henderson is in his career, he's dropped back 130 times, 96 attempts, 62 completions for a 64.6 completion percentage, and he's thrown 6 touchdowns and 1 pick. And that's 6 touchdowns and 1 pick is a pretty impressive number. That was during his time at Texas A&M. But again, he's got a pretty small sample size, and in that 6 touchdowns and 1 pick, he only actually has 4 big time throws to 3 turnover worthy plays. So that's not a great ratio there. The standout number about this guy is this, guys. He has dropped back 130 times. Or yeah. So he has dropped back 130 times. Listen to these numbers. It gets pretty wild. He's dropped back 130 times. And he has been sacked 14 times. So he is over a 10% drop back to sack ratio, which is crazy high. But then on top of that, you look at his attempts, there's such a big disparity between his attempts and dropbacks. 96 out of 130. I mean, I think that's less than 75% or right at about just over 75%, which is a weird number. That means 1 out of 4 times he's not getting the ball off. Whether he is a runner, but when you look at that, I want you to consider it, right? So 96 attempts throwing the ball, and he's been sacked 14 times. We are talking about a guy that's at a 15% sack percentage when he drops back. So 1 out of 6 times he drops back, he is getting sacked. I think that bodes really, really well for us guys. And I'm excited to dive more into that. Let's go ahead and take a look at his rushing game. And we'll dive into what our pass rushes bring in against this offensive line here in a bit. His rushing attack's pretty deadly, to be honest with you guys. Through his career, he's got 60 carries, 371 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's fumbled once, 15 carries of 10 plus yards, 5 carries of 15 plus yards, 21 first downs. He does make plays with his feet, and I'm guessing that's why he gets sacked so much because he tries to do too much. He's a big, physical, athletic guy, which has given us problems in the past. I wouldn't count him out, but I would say looking at the numbers, I think there's some clear red flags with his sack percentage that tells me he's probably holding on to the ball too long, probably trying to do too much. And the 6 touchdowns, the 1 INT seem to be some inflated numbers. So I think Utah should do a good job against this guy. Now let's move on to the receiving core for West Virginia. So who's this guy going to be throwing to? So, taking a look here, guys. Receiving core for West Virginia. All right. Okay, receiving group for West Virginia. Now, this is going to be an underwhelming group, guys. This is a group that's not exactly killing it. Just being real with you guys here. And I'm going to go off only receivers that have had 5 targets because this way it's kind of like, okay, like a little more than 1 target a game, which is a pretty freaking low number, but we'll just keep it that way for the sake of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and sort by total targets. Their clear target leader is Cam Vaughn. He is number 4. He is a receiver that really thrives with getting open and making a play. he makes plays after the catch, 5.6 rack yards, yak yards after the catch, rack yards after the catch. But his average depth of target is 13.3. So he is getting open and then getting yards after the catch. I think the problem here is 24 um uh, targets for 14 receptions. So he's at a 58.3 reception percentage for 206 yards, only one touchdown. Not super intimidated by this guy. He's broken four tackles. So if he does get the ball, you can see that is 14 receptions for four missed tackles, and he has seven first downs. So he's a pretty dynamic guy, especially after the catch. So I think he's a little bit of a concern, but again, it seems like he hasn't had a great connection with Nico Marchiol, and I would imagine overall as a passer, we'll expect probably a little less from Jalen Henderson than we saw from Nico for West Virginia. Moving on, we got Grayson Barnes, their tight end. He's been targeted 17 times, 12 catches, 113 yards, one TD. This guy is getting 3.6 yards of yak and 9.6 average depth of target. So he's, that's for a tight end. 9.6 is pretty deep for your targets. Oh, and then Cam Vaughn's also had five contested catch opportunities and pulled down three of them. He's fumbled once, and his passes to him have been intercepted once. Grayson Barnes, the tight end I was talking about, um, looks pretty decent. I mean, 113 yards on the season, though. I mean, not super impressive. That's less than 30 yards a game. Not super intimidated by this guy. And you kind of look at the rest of the room here, guys. 12 targets to Rodney Gallagher, 10 catches on the 12 targets. That's a pretty nice number. 3.1 yaks, and nothing crazy there. Average depth of targets only 6 yards. But he's kind of like a dink and dunk type receiver. Clay Ash is their running back. He's a receiving back. He has caught five passes or nine passes for 55 yards. It's a little bit of dink and dunk there. But a guy that does get involved in the receiving game, a little over two catches a game. I'd say outside of that, Jaden Bray, he has 95 yards as well, and he'll be the last guy I'll touch on. Um, Jaden Bray is playing out wide for basically all of his snaps. 3.6, yeah, 3.6 yak. And yeah, nothing super intimidating there. It looks like they like to get most of their guys downfield and take intermediate shots. I mean, a lot of these average depth of target, it's 10, 9, 9, 13. So they do like to send their guys downfield and take shots. I noticed that when I was breaking down Nico before. Obviously, Nico won't be the quarterback. But I did notice that they like to take shots, they like to take risks. Okay, so not a super intimidating receiving core. So I think this game is lining up really well for Utah. Just being honest with you guys, and the reason I say that is not only do they have a less than stellar pass defense, they also have a less than stellar pass offense, and I think both groups for Utah, the opposing groups, could use a not a tune-up game, but a good opportunity against a not awesome unit on the other side of the field. I hope I'm making that clear without being rude. Um, what I'm saying is Utah's passing game hasn't done super well. It'll be good to go against a less than stellar pass defense. And Utah's DBs haven't looked amazing, and it'll be great to go against a less than stellar pass offense. So I think it'll be good for both groups. Looking at coverage on our defense, so let's sort by total coverage snaps here. Taking a look at our crew guys. So this will only be for guys that have had at least 20 coverage snaps. Again, that's five per game. Boom. Okay. So 20 coverage snaps. Let's sort. So Teo Johnson, 124 coverage snaps. He's been targeted six times, allowed four catches for 33 yards. He has one interception, and his numbers, like his grade for PFF, looks low. But I mean, hard for me to judge him too harshly, huh? I mean, he's got six targets on the season and only allowed four catches for 33 yards. I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. That's weird that his grade's so low. Nate Ritchie, a little bit of a different story here. So Nate Ritchie has been targeted 14 times and allowed 9 receptions. So not a crazy high reception percentage, so that's good to see. But he's allowed 15 or 151 yards. So 16.8 yards per reception. So when he is letting up plays, they're big plays. Average depth of target 6.4 yards. So he's letting up the short game and then not capitalizing on it. A lot of that because he has 3 missed tackles in coverage. Um, he also has 4 stops in coverage, so he's getting back there and trying to make a play. You know what's funny is Jackson Benny and Nate Ritchie, when you look at their numbers as players, like as DBs, they're super similar. Like allowing a low reception percentage, but a lot of overall yards. Jackson Benny is 11.6 average depth of target. They both have 4 stops. Like they do get in there and blow up plays. Jackson Benny has 3 interceptions on the season. I believe there was a post that he's tied for second in the country, and he has a touchdown on the year. So Jackson Benny and Nate Ritchie, I think it's a good game for them to bounce back and look like players we know they can be. Smith Snowden also targeted 10 times, allowed 6 catches, 59 yards overall. Blake Cotton targeted 11 times, 7 catches, 72 yards. So I think the clear 2 guys that need to show. Oh, actually, hold on. Elijah Davis, 14 targets, 7 receptions allowed for 70 yards, average depth of target 11.9. He's allowed 0 touchdowns, though, no stops in coverage, and only 1 missed tackle. So, um, really low reception percentage allowed by Elijah, but he has been targeted quite a bit. I think Elijah, Nate Ritchie, and Jackson Benny are 3 guys specifically that I'm gonna want to keep an eye on, and maybe Blake Cotton too. Let's throw him in that mix. Where it's, hey, I really want to see a bounce back game. I want to see a bounce back game from all the DBs, but specifically that group. I'd really like to see them show a little more of what they're made of. The good news for us guys with our linebackers, they're looking pretty decent in coverage. Lander's only been targeted 4 times in 76 coverage snaps. He's allowed 3 receptions, 33 yards. Johnu Hall, 69 coverage snaps, been targeted 7 times, 5 catches allowed for 20 yards. The Mooney, 37 coverage snaps, 2 targets, 1 reception allowed. I mean, these guys aren't letting up much, which means their tight end shouldn't be much of an issue, and it already looked like he wasn't going to be. So that's a really strong sign there, right? Um, cool. So that's kind of the passing attack for both teams. Next, we'll go ahead and talk about the offensive line, um, the edge rush pressures, and the running game for
Okay,
both
guys, and
groups.
I think the offensive line versus the defensive fronts when it comes to rushing the passer and protecting the passer is going to be an interesting one to take a look at. The first group I'd like to go ahead and take a look at is going to be the offensive line for West Virginia. Let's go ahead and pull them up here. So for pass blocking, the offensive line for West Virginia, they are allowing right now a 5% pressure rate. And I also want to make it remind you guys that Texas Tech was allowing a 3% pressure rate, and we got back there quite a bit against Texas Tech. And so if West Virginia is allowing 5%, and don't forget, that's a 5% pressure rate against, it's including FCS, it's including, Ohio. So West Virginia does seem to be pretty susceptible to the pass rush. Just being real about that, right, guys? A lot of pressures allowed by this crew. Um, and Utah's pressure rate right now is a 10.5%. And that was after going against a good, they weren't on the level of our offensive line heading into the game, but that was a good Texas Tech offensive line, and we still showed that we can cause havoc. So let's take a look at this group for West Virginia. So I'm only going to be looking at guys that are in their starting offensive lineup. So looking at this group, guys, just so you know, one of these guys is a 38.6 passing grade. Check this out, guys. So this guy right here is
Tykees Crawford. I think I actually made a video on him when I was doing the Big 12 Football Digest, and he had a lot of trouble pass blocking, and I called it out. He has allowed 9 pressures on 137 pass block snaps. That's not good. That's quite high. That's what is that? 6.57%. I mean, that's pretty dang high. That's not where you want that. And he is their offensive tackle. Not sure if he's left or right. Then you got Chemo Macaniole. He is their guard. He has allowed 8 pressures on 133 snaps. You got Walter Young Bear. That is a West Virginia name if I ever heard it. Walter Young Bear. Cool. Not trashing on you, but that's pretty badass. That matches West Virginia. 8 pressures allowed by this guy on 137 snaps. Nick Crahi, 137 snaps as well, 6 pressures allowed, which is a little bit better than the rest of the group, but still not great. Like that's not where you want that number. I mean, that's still right at just around 5%. Then Landon Livingston's actually grading out quite well. He's their center, allowed 2 pressures on 119 pass blocking snaps. But I mean, when we look at that, guys, I'm gonna pull up our edge rushers now, but I feel like the story is probably gonna tell us that we're gonna eat. We're gonna eat. And don't forget, as I break this down, on top of the fact that this offensive line is allowing people to get back to the quarterback, their quarterback seems to have a problem with getting rid of the ball and throwing it before he gets sacked. We talked about that. He had his pass attempts compared to his sacks was 96 to 14 throughout his career. That is a big number to keep an eye on, guys. Big number to keep an eye on. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at Utah's pass rushers. I'm only going to look at guys that have at least 20 pass rush snaps. So that way we know, they're averaging at least 5 pass rush snaps a game heading into this one. Okay, so right out the gate, Jonah Laia on 111 pass rush snaps. He's got 7 pressures, so not where you'd want that. But we have our superstar on John Henry Daly. He's got 20 pressures on 99 pass rush snaps. So we're talking about a guy with a 20% pressure rate, not a pass rush win rate. His win rate, how much he wins against the guy he's going against, is 30%. But on that, he is pressuring 20 to 99 pressure to pass rush sets. I mean, that is super, super impressive numbers. Aliki Vamahi, defensive interior for Utah, 5 pressures, 97 pass rush snaps. So I'm thinking Jonah Laia and Aliki Vamahi might get back there a little bit, but don't expect too much. Their ratios aren't crazy. But then Logan Fano is actually looking pretty damn strong on the year, too. Not in that crazy John Henry Daly territory, but Logan Fano, he's at 6 pressures on 48 pass rush snaps. So we're talking about what, 12% ish, something like that, 12, 13%. And he has a pass rush win rate of 17%. So I feel pretty good about that duo. But then we've got more guys. That's not the end of it. Paul Fitzgerald, 3 pressures on 38 snaps. So not in the Logan Fano or John Henry Daly level. Um, but he looks pretty decent. Lance Holtzclaw, he is a guy that is going under the radar, guys. He's putting up some big games. He has 6 pressures on 35 pass rush snaps. I really hope we can find ways to get this guy in there on 3rd and long. 6 pressures on 35 pass rush snaps, guys. That's right under John Henry Daly. It's not quite where John Henry Daly is, but what is that? Like 17, 18%? It's a very high number. And his win percentage is only 17.6. So he is really like when he wins, he is flying back there. Lander Barton, 5 pressures on 35 pass rush snaps. I mean, we've got some guys that can get back there and cause some damage. Jonathan Hall, a guy, he's got 5 pressures on 25 pass rush snaps. Carson Kafusi, another guy, he's more of the defensive interior, but he has 2 pressures on 25 pass rush snaps. So hopefully he can rotate in there. But I think the clear story, is we have 3 to 5 guys that look like nasty guys, especially 3 guys off the edge in Fano, Daly, and what's his name, Holtzclaw, that are really putting up numbers. And they have two offensive tackles that are really not looking good pass blocking. I think we have a big mismatch here. I'm going to call that out. I am very excited. I think we are going to get back there. We are going to cause some havoc. Okay, now let's do the inverse. Now let's go ahead and check out Utah's offensive line unit. A lot of critical words on these guys. I did think, Caleb Lomu specifically had quite a rough day, allowing three pressures. But the rest of the group, I think Michael Mokafisi allowed a couple as well. But the rest of the group, it wasn't anything tragic. I think Spencer allowed one. Jaron Kump might have had one, and then Tanoa, I think, didn't have any yet. Tanoa Togia is actually grading out at an 87.5 pass block grade on the year. So, taking a look at pass block snaps, we're going to bump this up to 50 because we only want to look at our offensive linemen. Okay, so, one call out though, Spencer Fano does have four penalties on the year. Damn, I didn't realize that. That's a lot of penalties. That's one per game. None of the other guys, most of the other guys don't have any, and none of them have more than one, and he has twice as many as the rest of the group combined. So hopefully he can figure that out. The good news in his favor is he's only allowed one pressure all season, and Spencer Fano's one pressure allowed was against one of the best defensive units in the country. You look, guys, our pass rush, our ability to pass block compared to their offensive line. I know a lot of people are critical of Witt and how much is invested in the trenches and how much that's the focus. When you look at some of these other offensive lines, you need to understand why he's doing it. I'm not saying that I'm never going to be critical of Witt, but like having a good offensive line is such a luxury, guys. So our offensive line is allowed a 1.7 pressure rate percentage, which is really, really strong. And you think about that, that's including a game against one of the best units in the country. Jaron Kump has allowed four pressures. Caleb Lomu has allowed four pressures. So that's one a game. It's not crazy, and their overall pressure rates, Lomu's done 149 pass block snaps, so four pressures. What are we talking about there? Like a 3% pressure rate. Cump's allowed 122, four pressures on 122. We're talking about what, 3.5 maybe? Just doing the kind of math off the top of my head. Mokofisi's allowed two pressures. Togiai's allowed one, and Fano's allowed one. I mean, we're talking about an elite offensive line unit, guys, even after what happened last week. I mean, I think if anything, that was kind of like the unsung bright spot of last week is that our offensive line really held their own against a really good group. Okay, now we are going to move to the defensive front for West Virginia. Let's take a look at these guys. So, how well are they rushing the passer? And spoiler alert, guys, they are rushing the passer at an 11.5% pressure rate. They look like a very talented pass rush group, just so we're all on the same page there. Okay, so I'm going to do pass rush snaps. I'm going to go off all the guys that have had at least 20. So that means they're getting about five pass rush snaps a game. Switch over to West Virginia. Okay, boom. Okay, okay, West Virginia. So these are the guys that have had at least 20 pass rush snaps, so five a game. Right out the gate, we got a guy that really stands out to me. He only has 36 pass rush snaps, but he has 12 pressures on 36 pass rush snaps. That is a wild number. Reed Carico. Let me make sure that guy's not injured or something, just just in case. Um, let's see. Sorry to put this pause in the moment, but I this is such a crazy number that I want to make sure this guy's actually going to be out there. Okay. All right. Uh, yeah, so he should be out there. So he looks healthy from what I'm reading. Okay. Anyways, yeah, so this guy's a monster. That's a 33% pressure rate. That's crazy. His win percentage, I mean, it must be through the roof. I mean, that's 20%. That's crazy. So, anyways, looks like a monster there. And then you got Curtis Jones Jr., another guy with a really high number, 37 pass rush snaps, eight total pressures. And you got Edward Vesterinen, their defensive interior guy. Um, he is at 8 pressures on 97, which is pretty decent for interior. Their safety here is 21 pass rush snaps for 7 pressures. So they get creative. That's one thing I noticed. There's safeties, there's linebackers here. They do try to blitz, and they work a lot of different guys in. There's a lot of players here with 40 plus pass rush snaps. So they've got a crew, guys. They have a lot of good pass rushers. Just being honest with you, this is not a low end pass rush group. They're going to bring the heat. They've just looking up and down the list. They've got at least 5 guys with 12+% pass rush pressure rates. So they're going to come. They're going to bring it, and we got to be ready for it. The good news for us, and the good news why I like this battle, is we have an elite offensive line in pass blocking, and we have I think I'd give their pass rush a slight edge. Just looking at the numbers, their pass rush is a little better than ours overall. We're being honest. We have a 10.5% pressure rate. They've got an 11.5. We played a slightly tougher schedule, so maybe you adjust and call ours like 11%, but I'd still give it to them. But that what I do want to address is our offensive line is way better than theirs. Like it's their offensive line is looks bad. I will be shocked um, if we don't win that battle. Where I think our offensive line will be tested again this week, but I think they'll hold their own. Where I don't think their offensive line is going to hold their own against our guys. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rushing attack. Let's go ahead and take a look at the run blocking for our two teams. So let's only look at guys that have at least 25 run block snaps. So it takes their, um, their offensive line, but also their tight ends into account. So this is a good sign. So their center, who we've already pointed out, or they got two guys here, Carson Lee and Landon Livingston. I'm gonna go ahead and bump up the number of snaps just to make sure we're only looking at starters. Yeah, I'm gonna bump it up to 50. Yeah, okay. So this is getting us a better picture. So their offensive line is actually run blocking really poorly as well. You look at this, they only have one guy at a 60 grade, and he's a 60.2 run blocking, and the rest are 54.7, 52.3, 51.1, all the way down to 42.9 for their guard. Guys, I think our defensive front is gonna have a day with these guys. Just so we're all on the same page here. And these are bad grades. Oof. If I was a West Virginia fan, I would not be looking forward to facing this Utah defensive front. That seems to be where the big flaw for West Virginia is. They don't have an offensive line to compete in the Big 12. From what I'm seeing, again, I'm not trying to talk crap. That's just, I mean, that's what the numbers show. Okay, let's go ahead and look at Utah's team against the run, our defense against the run, which I feel confident is going to look pretty damn good. So let's take a look. All right, minimum snaps. I'll only count guys that have at least 20 run defense snaps, so that way we're getting guys that are at least going to rotate in. All right. Okay, 20 run defense snaps. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of what I thought, guys. I mean, we got a bunch of guys here in the mid 60s, high 70s, but more importantly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over here because this is run defense. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to switch this up a little. All right. Okay. So run defense. Okay. So for run defense, I want to look at our stops. So run defense, we got a lot of guys grading out really well. Jonathan Hall, 81.6 on 79 snaps, and it is showing. I notice him on the field. Lander Barton looking like a stud. Lavani Demooney looking like a stud. I mean, ooh, guys, looks good. Yeah, I mean, a bunch of these guys have over 5 stops on the year. How many guys have? We got Trey Reynolds at 20% stop percentage. Paul Fitzgerald 15.8% stop percentage. Cash Dillon 14.7. I mean, 8.3 for John Henry Daly. Lavani Demooney 8.3. Guys, we are going to make these guys have a bad day when it comes to the trenches. If you guys want to have a game that makes you appreciate the Utah style of roster building, this looks like the game. Okay, now let's flip over to our offensive line versus their defensive line. Or vice versa, sorry. Yeah, yeah, no. Our offensive line versus their defensive line. Okay. So our offensive line run blocking, we'll just bump it up to let's say 50. All right. Okay, yeah, we got a bunch of guys that have a lot of snaps here for run blocking. Good thing for us is I know who our starters are. Dallin Bentley grading out at a 71.8. And then we've got Spencer Fano, a 74.1, Tanoa Togiai, 57.8. And then all of our other offensive linemen are in the low 60s. So I'd say like our offensive line looks clearly better than theirs, but I think run blocking, we don't look as good as I'd like us to. But again, we've gone up against a really tough unit in Texas Tech. I don't want to lean too much on that as I break things down. But it does look like a good unit. But I would say it's not a great run blocking unit. I know a lot of people have been critical of it in some of the tape and missed blocks, missed assignments, stuff like that. So fair criticism. This actually could be a tough matchup for us. Let's check out their run defense for West Virginia. Okay, so West Virginia. Okay, they have a really good run defense, guys. Kind of what I expected. They seem like they invested a ton into their defense. Not everyone's good, but they have a lot of guys. Like it looks a lot like what I saw on our side of the ball. A bunch of guys with high run defense snaps, with high grades, and few guys with actually like bad grades. A lot of mediocre grades, but few guys with bad grades. Fred Perry, safety number 5. He was one of those guys I was saying was kind of a liability for them in the coverage game. All their safeties that we called out in coverage look really good against the run. So I'm guessing that's why they're in there. Um, Cool. So that is the run defense. Now let's check out the running backs. So I think both units are going to have a bit of a mismatch. I think the greater mismatch will be their offensive line versus our defensive front, where our defensive front really should overpower them. And then I think there will be a bit of a mismatch too, though, with our offensive line against their defensive line. I know that sounds wild to some Utah fans probably, but that does seem to be the case. They do seem to be a little better in stopping the run than we are at making the run happen. Okay, so now taking a look at their running backs, guys. So they've got Ty Edwards and Jaheim White and Clay Ash. They're kind of the three-headed monster that run the show here. Um, Ty Edwards and Jaheim White each have 3 touchdowns, are averaging 5.5 and 5.6 yards a carry. They're the clear bruisers in the running game. Um, they have each of them have 4 and 5, 10 carries of 10 plus yards. They're number 2 and 1. So I mean, Eh, very funny. And then they've got each of them have 2 carries of 15 plus yards, and between the two of them, they have 19 first downs. So that's a really good running back duo. The funny thing is this Clay Ash guy. He is their receiving back, number 27. He actually has the most carries out of anyone, 28 carries, and he has 74 yards on 28 carries, so 2.6 yards a carry for 4 first downs and 0 carries of 15 plus yards. So I would say they do have two really good guys, but for some reason they get Clay Ash overly involved where he's really just more of a receiver. I'm guessing that's to keep defenses honest, but when I look at it, it doesn't make sense because he is he's getting more carries than the other two. It's very odd. Anyways, let's go ahead and bounce over to our running backs. I know we had a bit of a lackluster game last week in the running game, but let's take a look at our guys. Overall, still a good year for these guys. Nikari Rogers and Wayshawn Parker are the two guys, right? I'll also add what's his name? Devin Dampier in here as well. I don't think I talked too much about how he can affect the running game, but he definitely can. We've also got a handful of other guys like Nate Johnson. Hunter Andrews again is out for the year, but Nate Johnson, Smith Snowden, those guys get involved in the rushing attack too. But our primary three will have some different guys. Bird Fickling come in, do some specialty packages. But the primary three are going to be Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, and Akari Rogers, right? That seems to be the group. Devin Dampier, 5.9 yards a carry, 240 yards, 41 attempts. Wayshawn Parker, 6.7 yards a carry, 214 yards, 32 attempts. Nakari Rogers, 46 carries, 4.1 yards a carry, four touchdowns, 189 yards. Um, One thing I do notice, just to call out real quick, um, I guess that's not true. I was gonna say we don't have a ton of 10 plus carries, 10 plus yard carries, but that's not true. One thing we do have in our rushing game is 18 first downs for Nakari Rogers, 11 first downs for Wayshawn Parker, and 14 first downs for Devin Dampier. And this is all just on the ground. And then on top of that, Nakari Rogers has 38 receiving yards. Wayshawn Parker's got 70 receiving yards. But I guess that between that Wayshawn Parker is going to be like a receiving back. That's not really how I view him. But anyways, we got a really good group of running backs, and Devin Dampier can make plays with his feet as well as anyone. Um, and they have a pretty good looking running back room too. I just don't know why they give that Clay Ash guy so many carries. It doesn't seem to be adding up. And then we'll probably get Bird Ficklin, Nate Johnson involved as well. So that is the rushing attack, offensive lines, and pressure rates and all that for the two groups. And next, we will move into predictions and how I
All
see
right,
this
guys. So
game
we
going.
just broke down the rosters and the performance of both teams. I think one thing that clearly stood out to me was that West Virginia is a good team. Or not a good team. Sorry, not a terrible team. They have some major flaws on their roster, especially that offensive line. It is clear that that is a problem for them, and offensive line is not something you fix overnight. That's probably going to be a problem that stays with them the rest of the year. And I feel bad if you're a West Virginia fan on that one. That's tough. Not having a good offensive line because it's hard to get them through the transfer. You gotta build them. You gotta build them. You can get some pieces through the transfer portal, but it's tough. So, yeah, I think they've got some major flaws, but some major upsides too. I actually think their defense looked surprisingly good with some liability in the passing game. I think Utah matches up super well. I think our offensive line is going to go toe to toe with, believe it or not, the numbers show this is one of the best pass rushing units in the Big 12 in West Virginia. They're a really good team at getting back there and causing disruption. So another week of us going up against another really good pass rushing unit. So our offensive line will get tested again this week. But I think they're up to the challenge. If they could hang the way they did against Texas Tech, they can hang with anyone. Keep an eye on Caleb Lomu, though. He did struggle a bit last week. I expect him to bounce back, but keep an eye on him. We'll have to see how that goes. So that'll be a good matchup to watch. But the real fun for us as Utah fans, and one key piece to us having a strong game is our defensive front getting back there. John Henry Daly, Lance Holtzclaw, Logan Fano. Mark this down now. These guys should be eating, like really eating, guys. Like this should be a stat game for that group. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if between the three of those guys, we could be looking at 12 pressures. Like this, the difference in talent is big. Like we should have a dominant win with our front four against their offensive line. It should be rough for them. And I really, this is a side note. Morgan Scally, if you're listening to this, please God, let your guys rush the passer with four. You can look at this matchup. If he's blitzing all night, I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm just saying I really hope we let these guys get back there and eat because this is such an opportunity to let them just beat up on this offensive line. I really do hope we see that.
Anyways, I think that's going to be pretty overwhelming for West Virginia, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to really compete with us in their offensive line run blocking against our defensive front. It does look like we should be able to overwhelm them in both categories on defense, and it should lead to quite a bad day. I think we got a bit of a stalemate. They don't have a spectacular receiving core. Our DBs haven't looked spectacular, but again, they went up against a really good DB group or wide receiver group in Texas Tech. But I think that'll be a bit of a stalemate. But I think the other parts of our defense should really overwhelm them when they're on offense. Now, moving over to our offense against their defense, this is actually quite a challenge, guys. This is actually quite a challenge. I think our running game, we might see another tough week of running the football. This is a really good run defense in West Virginia. And we did struggle quite a bit running the ball last week. Rush defense for West Virginia, they're only allowing 162.3 rushing yards per game, and they're only allowing 4 yards a carry. And they're playing a reasonably tough schedule. And that was also including Kansas that had, Jalen Daniels just lighting it up last week. So that's a factor there too. Um, I do think what's going to happen though is we're going to lean towards the pass. I think that's where our advantage is in this game. And I think we should do a good job at taking advantage of that, right? Use our receivers, make the throws, find out, use our receivers, use Bentley, figure out how we can get Bentley and Davis open, take advantage of the safeties, right? Those seem like mismatches in the passing game. Get them to buy into the pass, and that will open up the run. On a side note, if we do start running the ball well, it looks like it's probably game over for West Virginia. Like I don't see how they're going to compete at all in this game if we run the ball effectively, which we could. This is a good rushing defense. But then also they're going to get back there. They're going to try to create havoc at our quarterback. Our offensive line should hold up just fine, right? They're an elite unit going up against a very very good West Virginia pass rush unit. The good thing for us is if they do get back there, Dampier's explosive and athletic enough to, find a way to make a play if they do get back there. I feel very confident about that. Um, yeah. So those are kind of my thoughts, guys. Uh, I think our defense is really going to have a good night. It looks, everything's telling me that our defense should overwhelm this offense. Again, the wild card with Jalen Henderson at quarterback, but I'm not that worried. I know we do struggle a bit with, big physical quarterbacks that are really athletic or just more athletic quarterbacks, but I think we'll be just fine there. I'm not too stressed about that. I think we'll do a good job of containing him. The pressure will be overwhelming. Let's just hope we don't like if he does start to carve us up a little with his feet, that'll be a bad sign, but I don't think that'll be the case. This quarterback has been sacked a lot. So I don't think we'll have too much trouble there. I expect a few turnovers. I expect our DBs to bounce back. Kind of how I see this game script going is I see our offense struggling a little at first, but I see their offense really struggling at first, where they really are not able to move the ball against us. And then eventually we kind of just slowly start to figure it out on offense, start to make some plays through the air. Ryan Davis gets a couple broken tackles, Down Bentley gets open, that sort of deal. Maybe a little bit of run game. We obviously will have some essence of run game, but the pass game looks like it's where our advantage is. And I think we'll slowly kind of start to pull away. And I think we'll force some turnovers, maybe some defensive touchdowns. My prediction for this game is going to be I'm gonna go. Oh man, my mind's right in that 27 to 31 range for Utah. I'm gonna go ahead and say 27, just because I don't think our offense is gonna light up the scoreboard against this team, but I do think our defense is going to really handle this offense. I've got a 27 to 10 for Utah. A nice dominant road win in Morgantown should be great, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. It takes a lot of time to put these together. Please make sure you smash the like button. Also, comment down below. I want to know what you guys think. Am I missing something? Let me know. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I am out of here and go.